Good morning, my dear friends. I am Prashant Mavani and I warmly welcome all of you to StudyIQ. Let's have a positive start. A quote from Buddha. Think about it. Health is the greatest gift, contentment the greatest wealth, and faithfulness the best relationship. With this, dear friends, we have many important articles in today's The Hindu. This one is about these two editorials, right? This one is about rupee and dollar. We will go through it, why things are, we will understand some important concepts about economy. Then here you have this death in Gaza. It is about this recent you can say protest and this killing done in this nearby this Gaza Strip by Israeli forces and USA and Israel, and we'll talk about it. I have a question for you guys as well, a descriptive question at the end of this discussion. We'll go through it. Here you have this a pilgrimage to Nepal. This is written by Rakesh Sood. We have gone through articles written by Rakesh Sood earlier on as well. So we are not going to repeat things that we have already discussed a couple of days ago, but here we are going to talk about new things that we find in this article. It is more about India and Nepal's relationship. I'm sure you have a very good base about it because we have talked about it many a times now. So we will quickly go through all those important bits and pieces. Then you have these two articles. These two articles are more political commentaries. I will recommend you guys to take it as your self-study, but yes, make sure you go through it, right? It will take 10 minutes for you guys to go through both these articles, or maximum 15 minutes, and it will help your reading comprehension. It will help you with your of course you will know one or two things from these two articles. So go through it. I will leave it for you guys as your self-study. You have this one about new draft environment policy, national environment policy. We'll go through it. Very interesting points in this one, and why basically this article is arguing why this new environment policy is basically, you know, it's just a mask. It's covered with a mask or for ducking this Supreme Court's verdict on this environment policy. And let's start our discussion with this gateway to power. It is about Civil Services Examination. Now we know it very well. I'm sure you know this thing very well because you guys are preparing for various different competitive exams. So we know that IAS or UPSC exam is considered as one of the toughest examination in our country. It is like a Mount Everest, right? As far as our government exams, our competitive exams are concerned. Now the thing is, there is a charm to it, isn't it? There is, and this charm has been there forever, since colonial times. People have always, you know, aspired to join civil services because it is a ticket for a common man. When I say common man, do take into consideration common woman as well. For man and woman, of course, it's a ticket to become powerful. And as far as power is concerned, remember one thing, this is at the very core of our being, right? The reason why, one of the reasons why we love watching tiger in the jungle, right? One of the reasons why we love watching lion in the jungle, or you can say Gabbar Singh or Ravan, right? Because they all this, right? As far as these animals are concerned, or these characters are concerned, they have access to power, right? They have this, they don't have to report to anyone, they don't have to, you know, they have unlimited power with them. And this has always, right, even today you will find this thing that we like to, means we have this, you know, this charm for, and you will get attracted to a person or a thing or an animal or something that has unlimited power. Planes, may it be motorcycles, may it be cars, you know, this has always, this is a part of our psychology. Now there are good and bad things about associated with it, but we are not going into deeper psychological core here. Observe this thing, you will find it for yourself as well. And if you are, you know, if you are joining, or if you are preparing for civil services examination, for recognition, for power, then normally people say that it is a bad thing, but to be very honest, right, there is nothing harm in it, because you will find that this touch of power, it is always there. Even if you agree with it or if you don't agree with it, it is there, right? And see, it's just like having a gun. I'm not saying that you should have a gun, but I'm just giving you one example. Now, if you have a gun with you, then of course, I'm talking about a licensed gun, right? Then of course, it's a thing, it's a weapon that you have, but you have to be responsible with this thing as well, isn't it? It's not like in a small fight you take out your gun and shoot someone. That's not why you are given a gun for. Or let's take power. When you become IPS or IFS or IAS officer, right? It's not like if someone asks you for your ID, then you slap them. No, that's not for it. But you know it very well that people around you will look at you with a different perspective. And wherever you go, even if you go out for a restaurant eating food or something, then people will be knowing who you are and etc. You know, this thing is there. This is part of our culture. And this is going on since time immemorial. If you go back in history as well, then you will find that people used to come out when this king used to come out, you know, for you can say people seeing king sort of ceremony on an elephant. When king used to be out, people used to gather around and they used to watch the king and all these things. So it's always there. And there was a time when this car with white ambassador with this red beacon used to come out. People used to shut their doors, they used to open their windows, and they used to see that DM has gone by, or SP, Superintendent of Police, has just passed. So there was this sort of things. Things have changed now, no doubt. But we know this thing as well, that what happens is you have somewhere around 200 aspirants, or you can say all those students or aspirants who have cleared this exam. You will find that 200 of them will be on the top of the game. That means they are the ones who will join IAS or Indian Foreign Services, right? And then you have IPS. Now, one thing about IPS office or IPS services is that, and this is a reality as well, that many people who are aspiring for becoming IAS officer, they don't make it to IAS or IFS, and then they have to join IPS services. IPS services, because it is police services, there is a sort of, you know, not that attractiveness for it compared to IAS and IFS. Anyways, so you have this 200 to 250 odd seats, and most of the time you will also find that once you have cleared this exam, if your rank is somewhere around 700 or something, then people will again sit down to write this exam until they achieve what they are aspiring for. Now, another reason is serving the country. This is again a strong reason, no doubt, and there is no harm in it as well. But nowadays we have to ask this question to ourselves. Things have changed, isn't it, in our society? We have ambitious, we have tech-savvy and occupationally mobile Indians in our country at present. And nowadays we also understand this thing, that it's not, it's not necessary to join civil services, or civil services is not the only way. If you want to serve your country, you can contribute by paying your taxes, you can behave properly, you can be civic minded, you train your kids or people around you to be more responsible towards society, morally upstanding, and all these sort of things, right? If you are following all these things, then as well you are serving your country. This sort of awareness is there at present in our youngsters. The other thing is, this is again a very strong reason why people go for or opt for this Mount Everest or UPSC Civil Services Examination. And the reason is that there is a large power gap between a common person and authorities, isn't it? This is the thing that we were talking about, that if you go in a restaurant, trust me, I have many friends who are in police services, and I know this thing, means not only police services but in other civil services as well. And I know this thing that even in marriages and other places, you will find that if you are, say for example, deputy superintendent of police, if on one side you will have a person who is industrialist, and the other side you have a person who is working in police or other government service, particularly police services, right? Let's talk about police services. It's a good example. You will find that more crowd will rush towards this police guy in a marriage or any other function. As far as you are an officer, people will rush to you and will handshake you. They will be in their best behavior, because just in case if anything goes wrong with them, then they can directly call you. You know what I mean? So this is again part of our culture, and this is something that we see in our real life as well, as far as this dignity, fame, power, respect, all these things and other range of perks that you get by becoming a civil servant. And this gap, the larger the gap, the more people will, or the more students will get attracted to join this or to get this ticket to power. The other thing is that we have this informal and formal, balance of, there is a difference here, and we have this difference of informal powers and formal powers that we have in our society. And if this thing will change, means I'm not saying that this should change, but practically speaking, the salary that you get, right, the things that you get in civil services examination or civil services, right, is no match to what you get in a private sector. If you are at the same position in a private sector, then you will be earning more than what a person in civil services would earn. But then you have other things. I'm not saying everyone is corrupted, but yes, corruption is part of this government body. Means we find it young officers engaged in. Recently there was a case, I'll just give you one case. One person was he sat down for examination and he was copying. He was already IPS officer. So you have these things as well. So I'm sure this will help you. This article, why it is important, before closing it down, let me tell you. See, you have to think about this thing, because in your interview they will ask you one question. There will be other questions, but this question will be there, that why you want to join civil services. They will tell you that you have already done your bachelor's in this field or that field. You are a doctor or engineer or management background, or you have this paint art of, you are gifted with this art of painting or singing, etc. Then why you want to join civil services? Now, there cannot be any answer given by Prashant Mamani. You have to go into yourself and find this answer. This sort of points will help you to understand, or will help you in finding this answer. But you have to have your own answer. There is no, you can say, one answer to it, but there should be an honest answer to it. Because when you are honest, your body language, the way you breathe, right, the way you speak, your facial expression, everything will be in sync when you are saying something coming from your core. So remember this thing. This is one of the most important questions that will make sure whether you are in or not. And there are so many people out there, out of somewhere around 2,500 people who reach this interview level. From them, somewhere around 900 or 1,000 people will make it. So you can imagine there is a small difference here. This is a shade that you have to tackle, or you have to pick up this thing, and then you have to work on it. Enough has been said, dear friends. If you want to download the PDF of today's discussion, you will get it from my Facebook page. If you have learned something from today's discussion, please don't forget to pass your like, and do share this lecture with other people, because you are the ones who are listening this lecture on regular basis, and you know the quality of what we discuss here. With this, dear friends, StudyIQ provides pen drive and tablet courses for various different exams. Check out StudyIQ.com to find out more about it. Now, moving on to another article. This is about article on India and Nepal's relationship. Rakesh Sood, who is a former diplomat, he has wrote this article. We have talked about Rakesh Sood earlier on as well. Now, the thing is, dear friends, so far Prime Minister Narendra Modi has visited as Prime Minister of India 3 times to Nepal, right? And every time we find that there is a different atmosphere and different outcomes of his visits. The thing is, when Mr. Oli was here, and within a month, Prime Minister Narendra Modi went to Nepal. So this indicated, it's of course indicates that we want to repair this relationship, or Nepal is important. At the same time, it also indicates that relationships were deteriorated or were going down, and it was very important to arrest this going down, or this nosedive of India-Nepal relationship. It is part of our neighborhood. First, we have a very cordial relationship, a historic relationship with Nepal. We have talked about it earlier on as well. So remember all those things, this Roti-Beti and defense relationship, Gurkha battalion and other things that we have. Now, there was a perception in Nepal, because every time what used to happen that all prime ministers of Nepal, right? There have been many, but all prime ministers of Nepal, their first visit have always been here in India. I think, if I'm not wrong, there was one time when this tradition was not followed. But generally speaking, right, you can safely say that Nepal has always given importance to Delhi. Delhi is seen as a big brother, but there was a perception, and this was somewhere right as well, that for India, Nepal was not the first priority. So things where people in Nepal, or politicians, or this leaders in Nepal, they were not happy with this sort of attitude of India for Nepal. Now, as far as this first visit of Prime Minister is concerned, at that point of time, we talked about respecting Nepali sovereignty. We talked about sorting out or refreshing this 1950 Friendship Treaty, and adding all those things that was presented by Nepal as a wish list. So we said that we are ready for that thing as well. We offered encouragement for this constitution drafting process, and line of credit was declared or announced, $1 billion, which is not a small amount. We also talked about this HIT, that means highways, information ways, and transmission ways for connecting and working for development, infrastructure development, and other things in Nepal. So these were good things, right? As far as 2014 is concerned, they were taken as a very positive things, and there were many people who said that now things will change because Prime Minister Modi, new party is in power in India. After that, after a short period of time, Prime Minister visited Nepal again for this SAARC summit. At that point of time, he talked about, or there was a wish from India that the PM would like to visit this place. But this was not accepted by Nepal. We have talked about it in last discussion. And one of the main reason was that only 2 months were left for this new constitution, finalizing this new constitution. There was a deadline over there. And it was believed that, and this is something that was right as well, that if Prime Minister would have visited this Janakpur, Lumbini, or this Muktinath, these two places particularly, then there would have been a sort of, this climate, this political climate would get extra heat that would be against Nepal and this whole constitution making process. Because the thing is, if you understand this structure of Nepal's politics, then what we find is that Nepal has always been ruled by this Bahuns and Chetris. These are the people. They constitute 29% of the total population, but they have always been in power. And Madhesis, who are, these are the people who live in this Terai region. They have their relatives living in India, so there is a connection with India over there. 35% of Nepali population is Madhesis, and because they have not been in power and things like that. And we talked about this thing, you remember there was economic blockade. Nepal said that this is something that is done by India. India said that because there is violence going on, how can you expect us to deliver all these important items and things like that. So at that point of time, there was a rise in nationalism in Nepal, and this rise in nationalism had a touch of anti-Indianism in it as well. During this promotion campaign and other things, Mr. Oli has also said this thing, that he is the only one leader who stood against India, and this was for the sovereignty of Nepal. And as soon as new government came in, this is the first time in 2017 we saw that elections were conducted as per constitution. We had new parliament. Means when I say we, I mean to say in Nepal they have their new parliament, legislative assemblies, town municipalities, new people in, right? So now there are many things that are going on between India and Nepal. Recent visit, we have declared many new projects as well, in which you have one more, a pledge for $1 billion. We already declared $1 billion for 2015 earthquake. Now $1 billion for Nepal Police Academy and other things. So now we can say that things are moving on a right track. Nepal has proved that India cannot take it lightly. India has realized that we cannot take Nepal lightly. You have this China factor as well, China coming in. So hopefully things will be, but many things have been declared. Words are not going to be enough. We have to take action. If people will find that all the things that have been said and decided by both these countries, if these things are manifesting in real life, then this relationship will become a bit more, you can say, more up to date and more cordial. Death in Gaza. Now this is a very sad news. I was listening to BBC as well yesterday, right after this Hindu lecture, and I heard this word of Israeli Prime Minister. He said, he termed this thing as a day of glory. Now, American or USA, they have decided, Mr. Trump said this thing earlier on, that embassy of USA will be shifted from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Now, Jerusalem, it has its own history, dear friends. We have talked about when this thing came out. We discussed this thing that Jerusalem is a problematic place. When I say problematic, I mean to say politically, right? Religiously, it is a very important place for all three different religions, right? You have Jew people, you have Muslims, and you have Christians. So all these three faith, or people following these three faith, for them Jerusalem is a very important place. Now you have Palestine, you have two parts. You have this West Bank, and then you have this Gaza Strip. Now Gaza Strip here is Mediterranean Sea. Israel has always blocked this Gaza Strip, as well as Egypt has always blocked this Gaza Strip. So you have lack of resources here. I'm not repeating things here because it will be too time consuming and boring as well. So I will reckon you guys, all of you who are present today, I will reckon you guys to be up to date and regular with what we discuss here. I do appreciate that new students are joining us every day. At the same time, you have to do a little bit of hard work for yourself when you join in. Go through or talk with, discuss, put your questions in the comment section. There are people out there who are following this lecture for 6-7 months, and they know what we have discussed. They have all these PDF files and collection of everything, right? So ask them. They are the ones who are revising things, so they would be knowing when we have discussed this particular thing in the past, and from there you can have your own small community of students preparing for exams. So ask them and go through that particular video lecture and understand what we have discussed earlier on. I do appreciate, and I will expect, it is a request as well for all those students who are following it for a very long period of time. Dear friends, do help, do provide a hand holding to all these new students. If they are asking you a question, then please, right, as a team member, do provide them files and other things if it is required. This is how you help each other, and it will give you a sort of satisfaction as well, and that's how it should be. That's what I believe. Anyways, so Gaza, you have this, it has always been suffocated by this blockade by Israel and Egypt, and there were loudspeakers going on in Gaza, and it was basically about this decision of America. America has finally opened an embassy in Jerusalem, and then what we saw, violence. Many people were killed. Somewhere around 2,000 people are injured in this thing, and many people have died as well. And all these things took place on the 70th anniversary of Nakba. Nakba is a day which is marked by this Palestinian people. They remember this day of 1948 when they were forced out of their houses. And on the same day you find this sort of, so it is going to intensify this emotions that are associated with it. As I told you that Israeli Prime Minister termed it as a glorious day. The son-in-law of Mr. Trump has said or blamed these protesters for this violence. And the main problem here is that peace process. Earlier on, USA was as a mediator, as a middleman, trying to negotiate or bring both these parties on table. But now Mr. Trump is taking side of Israel, and Palestine has already said this thing, that you cannot have USA as your mediator. The other thing is, at the end of the day, even we know this thing, we are not that knowledgeable when we compare ourselves with, not that experienced. I'm not saying knowledgeable, but we don't have that much experience as far as Mr. Trump and other political world leaders are concerned. But one thing is very simple. We know that peace process, right? Discussions are the only way out to end this violence, to end this humanitarian crisis that is going on in this part of the world for a very long period of time. And what United Nations is doing, what are the countries of the world, what are we doing about this thing, right? We have seen this thing that USA means, if you go through the history of this thing, you will find that USA has no right to take sides, right? It is not authorized. It is a country. It is not United Nation. And as per United Nation, until and unless this Jerusalem thing is not decided, you cannot take this sort of decision. So international community is silent. It should not be. It should rise up. And, because the way things are going on, this is not acceptable. We have already seen Iran nuclear deal 2 being rejected by USA. Then we have this rupee route. It is about, means at present, 1 rupee or $1 is equivalent to 68.07. So in last 16 months, this has been the lowest for the rupee. And one of the main reasons, crude oil price and tensions going in West Asia, because we are too much dependent on 80% of our fuel is coming from as imports. Now the thing is, I'll tell you some brief thing about import and export. Very simple to understand. You can imagine, you can have your own examples. Now if rupee right is falling down, or if the value of rupee is falling down, if it is 68.07 at present, right, then this is going to be beneficial for exporters, isn't it? Because earlier on, you used to get, if you are selling 1 kg of apple to America, for example, you used to get 65 rupees earlier on. You used to get $1, and $1 is equivalent to 65 rupees in your country. But now you will get 68 rupees. Now imagine that you have sold 1 lakh kilo. 1 kilo is equivalent to 65, or 1 kilo is equivalent to $1. And if you have sold 1 lakh kilo or 1 lakh ton of apples to, for example, imaginary apples to pink apples to USA, right, then you can imagine that how much means this 3 rupee will create huge amount of difference. At the same time, if you are importing something, then it is going to be very expensive. I hope this concept is clear. The other thing is, we have also seen this thing that apart from these reasons, we have this reason as well, that monetary policy has been tightened. Now what is a tightening of monetary policy? Lowering of interest rate and increasing interest rate. When you lower down interest rate, what happens is that loans will become cheaper. When loans are cheaper, people will have access to loans, right? So money will become cheaper, you can say. Money as a thing, if you think about money as a thing, right, as a product, then it is available at cheaper rate. So this is good for businesses. This is done to promote growth, right? But when it is made expensive, right, it becomes expensive to borrow loan. At the same time, if you are investing in Indian market, or say for example, if you are investing in this emerging markets or developing countries, and if you are getting more money rather than investing in Indian market, if you get more interest from USA, or keeping your money in USA bank, for example, or if you give it to someone else, or you invest it, then of course, because loan rates have gone up, you will get more interest, more return. So this is how it works, and RBI now is in a dilemma. RBI cannot, because inflation is going up as well. A couple of days ago there was this news, government wants interest rate to come down, because interest rate coming down, loan becomes cheaper, and it will work as a growth catalyst, but this is not possible at present. So what can be done about it? We have to diversify our energy basket. At the same time, we have to smoothen this GST return and tariff and non-tariff barriers. As far as this developed world is concerned, we have to tackle these things as well. Now As I can see here, we have discussed many things and we are running out of time, beaten by the clock. So very quickly, we have this anything but green article. It is about draft national policy, forest policy 2018, that is out now. It is for public comment, the draft. It is not a final policy, it's a draft. Now the Supreme Court back in 2006, in 2011, in 2006 as well, but in 2011 Supreme Court made this thing very clearly that government has to follow this NFP, that is National Forest Policy 1988, and the clauses or section 2 of this policy when it comes to section 2 of this Forest Conservation Act of 1980, when it comes to taking decision, granting permission as far as this development is concerned. Now the thing is, this existing, this old policy that we have, right, this 1988 one, 30 years ago, which was released, this policy has some very good restrictions as far as diversion of forest land into non-forest land is concerned. And what it says that you need to have experts. Once you get a green signal from specialists, right, keeping in mind this cost and benefits that are going to be on terms of social and environmental costs and benefits. Once a specialist will give green signal, only then you can go ahead and give this permission to transfer this forest land into non-forest land. What we find now, and one more thing that I would like to add here, and this is given here, that as far as this costs and benefits are concerned, they are prerequisite. Without it, you cannot take decision. And the other thing is that you don't have any right at all to touch this tropical rainforest of Arunachal Pradesh, Kerala and Andaman and Nicobar. With this, you also have to keep this thing in mind, that you find tropical rainforest in this part of our country. Do open your atlas, go through this thematic map and find this rainforest or moist forest where you'd find them. Right, this type of questions you find in your MCQs, prelims examination. Anyways, so these are some conditions that you cannot interfere or you cannot touch this tropical forest. What we find in the latest draft, these things are completely deleted. So what it reminds us, or there is a big question that we have to ask, or that we can ask ourselves, that the main objective of this policy is to duck or to circumvent this whole, stand of Supreme Court and this clauses that we have in this 1988 policy. Important news: BJP is invited to form government. We have to wait and watch. Floor test is the main thing. Karnataka plea on Kaveri rejected. Pakistan Army has said that it is ready to engage with the government of India to have discussion. Decision on KM Joseph deferred. That means it's been postponed for now. Karnan, who is former Calcutta High Court, he was in jail for contempt of court, has announced a new party. Very surprisingly, General VK Singh, junior foreign affairs minister, he made a surprise visit to North Korea. Cabinet has approved new policy on biofuels. Very important items here. From here you will get the list of items from where we can get this raw material for biofuel. North Korea has threatened a new twist of this USA meeting, and government may soon adopt self-harm definition. Dear friends, a very beautiful picture of very beautiful as well as very brave woman of our country. Crew of INSV Tarini, they are going to return soon, and with this we have a new frog in Mangaluru, Karnataka, and banned ozone destroying chemical here, and you have this Montreal protocol associated with this. So go through these articles. That's everything in today's discussion. I have this descriptive question. Download this PDF and go through it. Thank you very much for listening. Jai Hind.